This is Podcast Reporter at www.podcastreporter.com. A bonus episode. What are 9 things that you won't get and that you'll be missing out on if you don't go to Podcast Movement, the conference? In this episode of www.podcastreporter.com, we actually go into 9 different things that you're going to be missing out on if you don't go to the Podcast Movement Conference in person, which takes place in Dallas, Texas, in August of 2014. Now, this was taken from, the idea that is, was taken from a post that Paul Colligan did, not only in his blog, but he made a podcast out of it in August of 2006, and he was talking about the Portable Media Expo, the Podcast and Portable Media Expo at that time. We enhanced it with a couple more so that you'll know exactly what it is that we're saying that you're going to miss. For instance, if you go to Podcast Movement, which is at podcastmovement.com, www.podcastmovement.com, you'll be able to register for the show. You'll be able to see the speakers lined up. You'll be able to see the program, and you'll be able to see exactly everything, the hotel to stay in. It's also recommended that if you can, stay at the hotel so that you can get into the networking environment. If you can, I think maybe perhaps the special block of rooms that were there at the hotel may have been all taken. Now, this sounds like a very good event for you as a podcaster to do what? To go in and do some networking, to get education, to look at what tools are out there, both hardware, software, and other types of tools for not only video podcasts, but also audio podcasts. And also take a look at some of the other podcasters and see what they're saying with techniques that are going on there. So it's not just tools, and it's not just software and hardware products, but also different types of tips and techniques as they tell their story, and also as they try and provide value for other podcasters. Because this is the conference that's specifically for podcasters and put on by podcasters. One of the people that I deal with a lot here is Gary Leland, and Gary Leland happens to be the podcast pickle man. He's now the man who brought you Poddertainment at www.poddertainment.com. That's the electronic magazine specifically for podcasters that brings you some information. It's not a cutesy magazine, and it's not a celebrity type magazine. It actually is an education type magazine to bring you up to date on what's new, and brings you articles written by some of the key players in the podcasting industry. Now, some of the people that I've talked to and that I've heard from in various blogs, posts, and different networking groups, they say that they're not going because of the expense, or that they're going to get the content later because they're signing up for the virtual ticket. Well, so I know that some people have family situations that don't allow them to go, and there's a conflict in time with some of the people who are part-time podcasters who want to be full-time podcasters, but their day jobs won't allow them. So if you're not going to be able to go, you're missing out on quite a bit. Well, what are you missing out on? Well, here goes. Number 1, you're missing out on the minds. There's a lot of encouragement, there's a lot of education, and there's a lot of collaboration and sharing of ideas that you have there when you're actually talking to people, and you're moving around an environment that's pure podcasters, so you're alike in what you think, and you're picking their brain, you're getting into the minds. And you can't do this by just looking at their website or getting the virtual ticket and listening to the recording of the presentations. You can't do that because this is an interactive, collaborative type of situation. And number 2, the players. Look at the people you're going to meet in person. You are able to meet with them, talk with them, shake hands with them, a one-on-one conversation in which you can, if you have a portable recorder, get a short review from them and see about creating some content for you that will be able to be played back maybe in your podcast, or at least take it back and have a recording of that dialogue that you had with them so that you can learn from them. Or take it in like osmosis. You're getting surrounded by these people, the players. That's number 2, players in the industry. Number 3, what they call the groove. Now, your friends and your peers back at home may not be podcasters, but now here's a place where you can spend time with those who are podcasters. There's a big difference because you can talk shop, You can also exchange ideas, see what works, see how their workflow is. And people who are passionate about podcasting will be talking about podcasting. So it gives you an opportunity to be in an environment where your friends and peers may not want to be, and they may not want to hear about it because they're too busy talking about maybe some TV shows or sports or whatever. So you're going to miss the groove of being surrounded by people who are passionate podcasters. Number 4, the mindset. You can change the way you think. Why? Because you can see the successful people who have been there, have gone into podcasting, and have made it. And they're very happy, and they spend time about their passion with people who have the same podcaster mindset. So if you want to encourage your podcaster mindset or solidify it, your mindset as a podcaster is something that you can lock in. It's something that you can build, and it's something that can help you to take your passion in podcast to another level of success. Number 5, the tech. Here you can get the latest on podcasting, including the hardware and the software, strategy, tactics, tips, success stories and case studies, plugins. You can see the people who all make this happen, as they will either be giving presentations about it, or you can go to where the booths are in the exhibit hall. And when you see that, you can get an idea from these people who are making it happen, ask detailed questions about it, decide if this tool or this particular offering, whether it's hardware, software, or the strategy or the tactics or the tips or the techniques or the plugins that they're talking about, is going to be able to work for you. That's something that's going to be very difficult to get, and probably won't with the 30-second web videos that you get on your laptop or your mobile screens. It just won't do justice. Number 6, the hallways. What do you mean by that? Well, do you realize how many partnerships are made or deals are done, relationships that are cemented, or relationships could be reignited? You strengthen them again, and basically it's a recharge of the relationships you made either at a prior event or online or during some interviews. The hallways are where most of the people spend a lot of their time, not necessarily in the presentations or the panel discussions, but the hallways is really where it occurs. And David Jackson from School of Podcasting said that he has gone to several events like this in the past. And at times, he never even bought a ticket to get into the presentations or the panel discussions. He just got the exhibit hall pass, which meant that he was in the hallways talking to people in the exhibit hall, in the lunch area, in the snack area. The hallways for him was a wonderful experience, and it spent most of the time. He would not have gone to the presentations and panel discussions because he was getting too much value out of reigniting or making relationships or meeting people he hadn't met in the hallways. Number 7, the buzz. When you return from an event like this, you have that buzz. It's a very gleaming and shining experience that you have on your face because you've been sharing an experience that's euphoric with other podcasters. And so you're going to have this buzz that's going to re-energize you, recharge you, want you to get back to where your home is, and be able to, after you're returning, go out and either start that new podcast or improve your podcast or be able to put into practice some of the things that you learned there, or set up the interviews or set up the discussions you had with some of the players that you met here in the Podcast Movement Conference. Number 8, you're going to also miss out on the ability and the possibility to create more content while you're there. Now, when you meet people at the conference, maybe for the very first time you wanted to talk to them, if you have a little portable recorder, you can record content in your interviews, either a brief interview or a discussion with them, or maybe get together with some of the panels that you have there. For instance, some of the people may be doing a Podcasters Roundtable, and if so, they're creating content right there on the spot with people in person instead of over the Skype line or over a Hangout or over a webinar jam, etc. So you've got an in-person capability of creating content. You're going to miss out on that opportunity to create valuable and also awesome content. You're going to have great content there because you've got the good players that you're going to be able to meet. And most of the people there are going to be willing to talk to you a few minutes and have an interview. I did this at one of the conferences before, and guess what? I met somebody that I had interviewed before, years before he even became a podcaster. But at this time, we finally met in person. It was great to meet the fellow. He was a wonderful guy, had a lot to say. And when I interviewed him at the end of the interview, I realized I had learned a lot. and that it was one of the best interviews I've ever conducted, even though it was in the hallway and you had the ambient noise in the background and everything else. But you're able to create good content with great personalities, and especially if you have either interviews, panel discussions, or even a podcaster's roundtable of sorts, whether it's informal or formal, you're still going to be able to create content while you're there at the show. And later on, you'll be able to publish that content along with some of the other good content. Having a review right after either a panel discussion or a presentation or an interview or a discussion with some of the personalities. So you're not going to be able to create that content if you just go and look at the virtual ticket. The gist that gives a lot of ideas, the sparks of energy. You've got themes, topics, you've got questions you can answer, all to create good content while you're there at the show. And the last one, number 9, you are going to avoid being delayed in getting the virtual ticket. So with that, you got the ability to be with the players. You've got an ability to listen to the keynote speakers, as well as the presentations, as well as the panel discussions, as well as the interviews that you got, as well as the people in whatever informal manner you're talking or collaborating with them, etc. You're able to actually get the interaction there instead of having to wait for the virtual ticket. Now, in the past, when I've gone to conferences and they've had a virtual ticket, sometimes it could take actually weeks or even months to get the content because of the delay in getting it published and getting it sent to everybody. And so that delay causes you to lose an awful lot of the euphoria, the enthusiasm, the buzz, as well as those fresh ideas that you've got and the excitement and the passion that you've built by going to this conference in person. So there it is. Now, I don't take credit for this idea. It came from Paul Colligan, and it was in his episode number 33 of a podcast show that he had called Podcast Tools Weekly Update with Paul Colligan. It was episode number 33. Here are 9 things that you won't get if you don't attend Podcast Movement, the conference. It looks like it's going to be a wonderful conference. It looks like it's worth going to, and it looks like it may be the first of another conference that's annually presented, that's staged in either Dallas or other cities, and that will have the feeling that gives you these 8 things that will benefit you, and it will prevent you from having a delay in getting the virtual ticket and actually consuming the content from the virtual ticket after the show, when it may be too late. The buzz may have gone down, and some of these items that they're talking about may have already passed if they're events that take place on specific dates, sometime right after the conference. So let's review these again before we leave. What are the 9 things you're going to miss out on if you don't attend Podcast Movement, the conference in Dallas? Number 1, the minds. Number 2, the players. Number 3, the groove. Number 4, the mindset. Number 5, the tech. Number 6, the hallways. Number 7, the buzz. And number 8, the possibility of creating additional content. And number 9, you're not going to have and you're going to miss the delay in getting the virtual ticket, because you'll have all of that right there at your fingertips, handy and in person, up front, close and personal. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular podcast. Again, we'll see you there at Podcast Movement. And if you're there, say hello. If you have your portable recorder, let's do a short interview. We'd like to know what you're doing and what kind of podcast you have and how you're going to improve the podcast, and also what kind of value is this conference to you, and would you go again? Those are the types of questions that we'll be trying to get answered while we're there. We'll be able to give our perspectives on the show and the value that was offered and received. So we hope to see you there in person. Podcast Movement, the conference. And you can find more about it at www.podcastmovement.com. Until then, we'll see you next time.